Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Earlier this year, we looked at Batman: The Abduction, a story about the titular hero possibly being abducted by aliens, for once not his superhero co-workers, forcing him to go to the Justice League team-building seminar. It was left open-ended whether the experience was real or an elaborate illusion created by a new foe called the Kook. While its reception at the time was mixed, writer Alan Grant followed it up a couple years later, with returning artist Norm Brayfogle joined by Noel Giddings to bring us Batman Dreamland. Instead of aliens, we get a conspiracy a bit closer to terra firma. Let's see if this sequel makes us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. The cover sees Bats in a thinker pose, trying to figure out who graffitied his cape with a desert landscape, a road map, and what looked like tourist photos. Alfred's too busy being the one butler in a mansion that sits above an underground crime-fighting base, so my money's on a team effort by Tim Drake and Dick Grayson. It's certainly more visually complex than Abductions, though textures here are a bit grittier. As with its predecessor, this 48-page story is broken up into chapters, the first being The Threat, which opens on a splash page of police outside the home of a man that seems to have hung himself, and Batman observing from a nearby tree branch, though his pose suggests he looks like maybe he just woke up from a nap.
Some days you just can't catch some shut-eye while on patrol. I was having a really good dream, too. I was definitely going to master the Kamehameha at that time. I just know it.
Once again, we see Batman hiding in trees, another dagger in Gotham Girl's heart. The deceased's daughter insists to Jim Gordon that her father would never have ended his own life, and rather this was a murder committed by aliens.
Aliens are not like that.
This is Hal Lewis, who says that a couple weeks back, her dad returned from a secret research base in Nevada, angry and scared that someone was coming for him, to the point that he wouldn't speak to her or leave the house, and she thinks the military has been working in tandem with the extraterrestrials. Well, they've got that company volleyball tournament coming up. First prize is a $50 gift certificate to Pottery Barn. Despite there having been two other Gotham scientists that worked for the same agency, who also allegedly unalived themselves, the commissioner isn't convinced of foul play, saying that all three men were under a lot of stress, leading to these tragic circumstances. This kind of makes Gordon out to be something of an idiot at first, even though he says the police looked into it, and they haven't found any contradictory evidence, but as Batman narrates, the dead men's work is protected by the Official Secrets Act, meaning there's only so much nosing around the cops can do. Preferring to give her statement later and be alone for now, the woman leaves, Batman silently following. Later, in a parking garage, he approaches Hal, saying that he's looking into her dad's death. "Tell me, do you believe in aliens?" Does the guy that works with Superman, Martian Manhunter, has met non-human Green Lanterns, done battle with White Martians and Darkseid, believe in aliens? A normally simple question that becomes baffling given this context. She explains how her dad worked at Area 51, also known as Dreamland, hence the title, and returned looking like he had aged a decade. "They had him go through all the nasty troll comments on videos of soup commercials that featured multiracial families, and he was only gone a month." Terrible things went on there, but he only mentioned one name, the project leader, Dr. Staines, and also gave her some maps he made, the closest he could get to security for all the good it did. That's when their chat is interrupted on another splash page by an enormous golden-furred gorilla. Oh no! Kongorilla's off his meds again! Bats is knocked aside by its kick, breaking his arm, and he flips out of the way of a car that changes color in between panels. When the ape grabs Hal, he tells her to close her eyes as he throws a phosphor capsule that blinds the animal so she can get away. It charges pointy ears, so he uses a dislodged metal pole to vault the beast over him and into a wall, then using gas pellets to make it go night-night. The primate suddenly disappears in familiar gold sparkles, along with Batman's injuries and all the damage done to the lot, and there's only one man who can produce these kinds of illusions. You mean the type that follow the laws of physics and are vulnerable to anesthesia? He arrives at the apartment of Franklin Selly, the UFO expert who also went by the Kook, which was kind of a split personality. After a month since his release from Arkham Asylum, he's in the middle of a splitting headache when Bats arrives to question him. At first claiming not to know anything, the description of the ape fight has him admitting it was technically his powers at work, but not of his own willful doing. While he tried to fight it, something in his head hisses and whines, voices giving him commands, forcing him to use his powers to create illusions. Though he does insist he was cured of his addiction to cosmosis, the drug he created which gave him these abilities, and certified sane by the eminent Dr. Staines. He's so eminent, he doesn't actually have to work at Arkham to release one of their inmates. Which, yeah, is kind of the case. Not only is it the same name Hal mentioned earlier, Bats happens to know for certain, offhand, that there's no one at Arkham with that name. At that moment, his attention is called to the building across the street, something he noticed when he initially arrived, but probably didn't pay any mind until now, because it wouldn't have worked for the pacing of the story. The roof has a lot of antennas bunched together, so he swings over and through the window, finding two bald guys in suits, not unlike the men in black he encountered in the abduction story. They're definitely not illusions, nor is the large gentleman in the shadows who strikes his neck and exits with the suits, leaving Bats dazed as the computers self-destruct, leaving no trace as to who they were or what they were doing. High-tech monitoring gear, hired muscle, secretive about their data collection. I'd say Apple's market research department. When he returns to Sully's apartment, he finds Hal there, who turns out to have long admired the UFO expert's work, even though Franklin's changed his mind on the topic. I'm no longer convinced there are aliens.
Okay, that's it. This is driving me crazy. Hey, Superman, I need you to settle a disagreement. It's pronounced Willem Dafoe, not William Dafoe, right?
Skepticism or not, he's willing to help uncover the truth of Dr. Lewis's murder. Bats is cautious about this since it was Sully who created that ape earlier, and even though he's reminded that the guy was forced to do that, Bats says that at least checks out, since he was being watched from that neighboring apartment, but then openly asks if that wasn't just another one of the Kook's projections. Because you narrated that they were not illusions! Did that big guy's attack give you drain damage? Hal has brought along her dad's maps of Dreamland, and since that's where he intends to go and get the truth from Staines himself, the vigilante asks to photograph them, because Batman can be polite under the right circumstances. Early in his crime-fighting career, Bruce tried asking permission before punching muggers and supervillains in the face, but that turned out to be very counterproductive. Sully suggests he and Hal go along since they each have a stake in this and would make a good team, but Pointy Ears shuts him down as he leaves, because he works alone. At that moment, all his sidekicks converged on Wayne Manor with a mysterious urge to smack Bruce upside the head, and Alfred tells them to form a line behind him. Chapter 2, Into the Mystic, begins 2 nights later, our hero parachuting into the Nevada desert along with a modified Batmobile. While narrating while Area 51 is known as a test area for top-secret aircraft, rumors suggest it's home to genetically altered creatures, scores of doomsday weapons, and alien conspirators. All the while, the government refuses to admit Dreamland even exists. They're actually referring to the 8th season of Archer, where they started doing extended coma fantasies. Real controversial move on the showrunner's part.
Okay then, I guess just pout.
Since aircraft within the area would be tracked, he lands miles away and drives his Bat monster truck much of the distance, before parking it and draping it in camouflage. With the base's tight-knit security measures, the only way in is full-on infiltration. He's briefly distracted by a shiny orb that could be a new research vessel, a hologram, or aliens, but ziplines in to get to work. Meanwhile, at the front gate, the guards have let through a General John Stark, with an order from the President to conduct a surprise audit. As the General and his driver make their way into the base, they're revealed to be Sully and Hal, the Doctor using his natural psionic abilities. They're weaker since he quit Cosmosis, not lasting as long and more strenuous to maintain, but it should be enough to get them to Staines. But first, I'll tell him the President is ordering him to visit the White House dressed like Little Bo Peep, just to see if he'll go for it. He reiterates to Hal that he doesn't know if aliens are real, but they could very well find out tonight, as he stares at the sky, looking like a sad, empty-eyed Reginald VelJohnson. It'd be hilarious if these disguises were his projection of actors he's seen on sitcoms and got found out because a soldier was wondering why the dad from Family Matters is inspecting the base. Working off Dr. Lewis's map, Batman is bypassing some of the more advanced security on the grounds. using a breather to avoid tripping the carbon dioxide detectors, and a specially made cape from his then mechanic Harold filled with liquid hydrogen capillaries to mask his body heat. But that would have come in handy one of the 3 times the Predator alien stopped by. Unfortunately, a cactus rips his cloak, releasing some of the hydrogen and putting him at risk of discovery, so he deploys a portable EMP generator, knocking out power within a 1,000-meter radius for roughly 1 minute. Getting out of the cave was a chore on its own because he had to convince Alfred that this time it wasn't an elaborate way to get out of another Wayne Industries social function. It affects a relatively small area of the base proper, so they'll probably consider it a system glitch, but he still has to bat hustle over fences and past distracted guards before narrowly making it to an air vent in time. Then we get introduced to Dr. Staines, telling people to sit, then stand up, then push needles through their hands, which he seems very satisfied with. Ouch. Wait. They're all sitting after he told them to stand up again. Maybe this isn't the success he thinks it is. Chapter 3, Going Underground, which sees Batman narrowly avoid getting sliced by a ventilation fan, while Sally and Hal are brought further into the base, level 23, where the General will need to use the retinal scanner to proceed further. Problem is, Franklin's powers won't work on machines, so he instinctively makes the 2 of them seem to disappear. Unfortunately, Hal asking what he did is overheard by the guards, one of whom fires off some bullets as a threat to spray the area, and they reappear. But in a way, this does get them what they wanted, sorta, as they're taken to Dr. Staines, who looks like if Lex Luthor had a serious skin condition. He presents the presidential order as just a blank sheet of paper, which Sally insists must be some kind of mistake. Clearly, the real order must have gotten misplaced while we were moved to the base.
And disappearing in front of the guards?
I'm a magician for kids' parties on the weekends. Thought the guys might enjoy a free show. Furthermore, Army HQ doesn't have a General John Stark on file. When the disguised telepath refuses to answer any questions, Staines does what so many villains do, a variant on that line from the movie The Lives of a Bengal Lancer, saying he has ways of making him talk.
Hey, if you won't talk, I guess we'll just let you go and you can go back to Imposter says what? Really? Nothing? Well, I'm out of ideas.
Specifically, he can do things to his mind, and this sets Hal off, saying that's what he must have done to her father, Milor Lewis, a first name that sounds kind of made up, but is an actual name in England, even dating back to the 13th century. Anyway, since the jig is thoroughly up at this point, the illusion is dropped, and the 2 ask why Staines was involved in Sully's treatment at Arkham, and why he and the aliens murdered Hal's father. The only revelation the disfigured Doc offers is that it wasn't aliens that killed the late Mr. Lewis, but being driven to self-termination by horrific images projected into his mind by Franklin Sully.
What a plot twist!
He and his muscle leave until he can figure out what to do with the intruders. Batman is still inside the complicated maintenance ducts, and stopping to see what looks like surgeons about to operate on an alien body.
Real? Disinformation dummy?
It can't be a disinformation dummy. It looks nothing like Jesse Waters. He dismisses it as he drops into the data center, accessing their files to get info on Staines, but those are restricted, unlike the info on a plethora of other subjects which conspiracy theorists would go nanners for. Nuclear pollution, black budget prototypes, what's really on Mars. Yeah, it turns out the large face on the surface of the planet was a sculpture John Jones was working on before he got pulled to Earth. He was the last living Martian. He needed some kind of hobby. He then visits Hal and Sully, locked in adjoining cells, chastising them for getting involved when he told them not to. I mean, technically he told them he works alone, not to stay out of the investigation, but why split hairs now? Sully is hooked up to an alpha wave reader, a chair that will shock him if he tries using his powers. It'll also berate him for being a total beta because it's programmed with that debunked alpha wolf fallacy. This is all watched and heard by Dr. Staines through security cameras, which feels like such a no-brainer I'm surprised Bats wouldn't have anticipated it, as he says he's going to get them out after he pokes around Staines' office. Since he's risking detection with each passing minute anyway, he unlocks the door to said office with a skeleton key, by which I mean plastic explosives. He accesses and downloads data on Operation Clean Slate, then sends it to his car in case something happens, like getting bonked on the head by a fist that's about the same size.
Kabong!
While being restrained by the dreadlocked Bruiser, he formally meets Staines, who admits to manipulating Sully back at Arkham via an implant to access his brain. He had the ex-Kook drive Lewis and the other Gotham scientists to do themselves in, since they were going to blow the whistle on Staines' experiments. Now he plans to see if there's a suitable use for the Batman.
Grab coffee, write up emails, clean the testing room that we like to call the Splatter Shack. You know, routine unpaid intern stuff.
As Sully tries to apologize to Hal for what happened and her not having it, Staines escorts Batman through the base, passing by some of his human guinea pigs, explaining that, while effective at implanting false memories or emotions or fabricating voices in one's head, current mind control techniques are crude, like high-frequency emissions and microwaves.
I can't tell you how many slaves we lost because someone accidentally pressed the popcorn button.
With his clean slate techniques, the mad scientist can go as far as erasing a subject's mind to be rebuilt for whatever purpose he chooses. Of course, he's explaining this all to our hero because... villain, I guess. Naturally, Chapter 4, Mind Wars, begins with Bats in a straitjacket and placed in an elaborate machine to be the next test subject. Staines mentions his dream of a world with no war, crime, or chaos, because all individual minds are replaced with one mind of authority.
Sounds like hell to me. I mean, without crime or war, how do I wage war on crime? What do I do with all my fancy gear and equipment? What, am I supposed to get therapy for my persistent trauma? Do you know how crazy you sound right now?
The Doc isn't really interested in who's under that mask, but it may be useful as a test, as he activates the machine and starts bombarding our hero with a sensory overload of color and sound, to the point he can't tell how much time has passed. After some dark silence, there are pulses of light and a bass note he can barely hear.
Okay, so first impression of your album's title track? Not great, honestly.
As the device tries to impose a matching brainwave, Batman realizes he can't just go along with this, so conjures some imagery in his mind to focus his willpower. No, of course, it's going to be a giant bat defending a Batman castle from some invading scorpions. He fights the machine for hours, then a whole day, at least according to Sully, who can't think of a way to help. Hal snarks that he seems only able to act when under someone else's control, so Franklin decides to try contacting bats telepathically, which will get him shocked, but it shouldn't bother Miss Lewis any. Not after all the trouble she went through to gaslight him like that. Indeed, he gets zapped as his sparkly astral form pops in on the mental battle, telling our hero they need a plan. After 26 hours, Batman relents, saying he'll reveal his secret identity to Staines, with his bald lackeys and right-hand brute joining him. After the big guy, finally named Tyson, releases the Dark Knight, he pulls back his mask to reveal Hal Lewis. Well, that's it. I'm out of here. Batman revealed to be a woman. You just know some bad-faith jackwagons with podcasts are going to have the whole internet burned down for this. Best avoid the traffic and get going while the going's good. Assuming that somehow they switched places, Staines sends the Baldies in Black and Tyson to bring him the prisoners. Bats masks back up, ending Sully's illusion and confusing the villain until he's palm-struck in the face. I guess the cells were right next door to that experimentation room, because just as the goons are realizing they've been had, and still take their captives out despite that, the Caped Crusader exits with Staines, hostage style, then throws him at the suits and kicks Tyson in the face with both feet, since there's no time to slug it out with someone who's obviously the product of Staines' machinations. Obviously? Are you sure you're not just saying that to excuse the fact that a dude twice your size got the drop on you twice? However, it's not enough to keep the big guy down, since he tackles Bats, who tells Sully to do his thing. And even though Tyson had to have heard that, he still focuses on fighting the imaginary demon that suddenly appears behind him. While Bats and his allies escape, Staines has to scold his henchmen into seeing through the fakery, while their captives make it to an elevator, and Pointy Ears remotely activates his car, which busts into the base while he takes out a couple of guards. And wow, look at his head here! That's not just a slightly unrealistic angle, his noggin is just removed from his body entirely, floating next to his chest. Weird. Moving on, the three get inside the car, I imagine climbing in via ladder somewhere in this thin gutter space, And while Tyson tries hitching a ride, he gets zapped for his troubles and left behind. They're chased by helicopters, jeeps, and motorcycles, trying to box them in, but there's still that EMP generator from earlier, which Bat sets off remotely to stop the pursuers dead in their tracks. Good thing his own ride is shielded. And I'm sure those guys in those choppers are just fine. Though Frump seems like an odd sound for a metal craft hitting the ground.
Zork? What is Zork?
I didn't say Zork.
As they drive away, Hal commends Sully for his bravery, acknowledging her dad's death wasn't really his fault, but will need time to come to terms with it. Sully's afraid Staines will still be able to control him, but Bats figures he'll be locked up for life after he releases the files he obtained. When Hal asks if the vigilante happened to see any aliens while on the inside, Batman pauses, then says he doubts it, while narrating that he wasn't sure what he saw, why it was there, and if anyone could tell what was or wasn't real in there. And in the sky above, peculiar lights twinkle in the sky. Area 51's Operation Disney experiments to create functional wishing stars have gotten out again. Batman sent the Operation Clean Slate data to a senator, a senior White House aide, and a few agency chiefs. And yet, the news reports that rumors of a mind slave program have been quashed. An official was reprimanded, a junior employee fired, but beyond that, everything is back to normal after an alleged security breach at Area 51. Bruce narrates what kind of society doesn't question or punish a government that experiments on its citizens in secret. The comic ends as he pulls off his mask, looking really ticked off, and laments how catching a murderer doesn't feel as victorious as it should. That it's not a dreamland that they've created within that base, but a nightmare. Too bad we don't know anyone who's part of a superhero team that could easily expose it for the world to see and bring the perpetrators to justice. A righteousness association, if you will. That was Batman Dreamland, a bit of a downgrade from a story that was kinda just okay to begin with. The abduction didn't feel like it warranted a sequel, but the idea of a follow-up about tangentially related conspiracies has potential at least, though there are not many strong connective threads. Much like that book, this was either personal for Grant, having Batman investigate real-life theories people have, or he may have just thought it was a cool idea. The infiltration of the base is clever, and had Sully and Hal not gotten involved, Bats probably could have dragged Staines out before anyone noticed. Yet the story insists on making our hero question what he sees when there's no real reason to. He encounters people he can tell are not hallucinations, then asks the psychic projector guy if he cooked them up. He sees some glowing orbs in the sky, an alien autopsy, and wonders if they're fake. I mean, sure, maybe those orbs were part of some holography experiment, some routine testing or something, but dissecting a spaceman's corpse? Why would that be faked inside a highly secured facility? Does Bruce think they devote time, money, and manpower to putting on elaborate 24/7 performances on the off chance a spy makes their way inside? Well, Mr. Nash, you have an impressive military service record and an advanced degree in chemistry, but I'm afraid we can't hire you at this clandestine government lab of horrors, not without at least 4 years of stage theater experience and 3 years of tap dance under your belt. If it was all meant to fool a trespasser, wouldn't that just feed the conspiracy heads if any visual evidence made it out? How would that help them to confirm some aspect of Area 51 that isn't true? That said, Bruce doesn't seem to question any of the files he discovers when he pokes around. One of them mentioned electronically induced abduction experiences, which I thought may have been a subtle reference to the previous story, maybe hinting that, for whatever reason, Dreamland agents used this on Bats, and that maybe it was going to be followed up on in a third book. But apparently there was never a planned sequel to this, and would be the last collaboration between Alan Grant and Norm Breyfogle. But that came from an AI-assisted search, so maybe take that with a grain of salt. A wiki had alleged both these stories were set in some Elseworlds universe, but I see no such logo, nor why it would need to be, since it's already established that aliens like Superman and Martian Manhunter exist, making Sully's change of heart on the existence of extraterrestrials all the more confusing. What, does he think those Justice Leaguers are lying about coming from other planets? Honestly, I don't know if that green shapeshifter or the guy in the red cape that can deadlift mountains are from Earth or not. Me, our doctor! There are some questions left unanswered, some inconsistencies, where the UFO expert is concerned. Sure, maybe his skepticism isn't out of the question after his experience with Cosmosis, but there's no explanation as to how Staines managed to get so close to Franklin in Arkham to put a control implant in his skull. Unless Dr. No First Name Staines just kept sneaking in to treat the telepath, wouldn't there be some kind of paper trail, like him visiting the asylum on a temporary basis? Some manner of official documentation? And while I could accept that the custom drugs Sully made activated some latent metahuman ability, and even enhanced them, they don't seem as weak as Sully suggests they are. He's able to keep himself and Hal disguised for quite a long while, with no problem, before he willingly drops the charade. Not sure why he wore that lab coat for this little adventure. Was he trying to pass it off as a costume or something? And when he does present some difficulty in using them, it's really because he was continually zapped by that fancy chair. For that matter, even though that thing was meant to hurt him when he used his powers, it still let him use them. Did no one think to have someone watching just in case he tried something while Staines was tormenting Batman? Seems like that would be a standard move for such a guarded facility. Another thing, he pretty quickly acknowledges that someone was making him use his powers, after 2 weeks and 3 dead scientists. Did he not see any connection to his headaches? Did he not think to call someone about this beforehand? Then you have Hal Lewis, who feels pretty tertiary. She has that connection to the mystery, her dad's death, but we never get why she jumped to the conclusions that aliens were involved. Nothing about her pops mentioning them or claiming to have seen them. Maybe she assumed as much because she knew he worked at Area 51. Her interest in UFOs, admiration of Sully, all seemed very overshadowed by everything else, as to make her more of an afterthought. Even when the story attempts to add some dramatic tension, when she finds out Sully played an unwilling part in her dad's demise, it doesn't really make anything more interesting. It's understandable that she'd resent him for a while, and show signs that she's starting to forgive him, but her purpose overall seems to just be a means to emphasize Batman's doubts about alien stuff. Now, Bruce resigning himself to never really knowing what happened to him in Abduction was one thing. Between the event itself and the machinations of the Kook, it all messed with his head, and the clues were too thin to arrive at a conclusion, so reasonable that he would at least table it for a while. This little adventure is a different matter entirely. Rather than following up on that specific previous mystery, he's actively seeing this stuff with his own eyes. No psionic illusions or brain chip. If he didn't want to dwell on the weird stuff he saw because he had a specific goal, that's fine, but it seems irrational for him to question the authenticity of what he's seeing before him. And when you think about it, it's a story where Batman, the world's greatest detective, only investigates so far, which not everyone would be on board for. And for all the diabolical things he learned, only for it to get swept under the rug, I gotta ask, what's stopping him from getting some of his closest allies, Justice League members or not, and busting the place open to bring their dark deeds into the light? Sure, there'd be some holdouts, but I'm sure plenty would be on board. Staines as a villain is fine, if a bit unremarkable. The ambition and the means to turn everyone into the Borg, decidedly amoral and ruthless, but preferring to let others do more of his dirty work. The most unique thing about him are those odd lesions on his head, but yeah, no more memorable than his muscle-bound henchman Tyson. They work well enough for this story, but other than that, feel pretty disposable. The art is really good. Nice designs, vibrant colors, and great effect on Batsy's experience when the machine is trying to fry his brain. Though, admittedly, there were a couple of goofs, like Batman's head, and what looked like Dr. Staines through the window of this testing room, while at the bottom of the panel, it looks like his head inside the room. Don't tell me Area 51 perfected the shadow clone jutsu too. While in many ways a logical follow-up to the Abduction, Dreamland ends up falling short. Maybe it was just a fun concept the writer wanted to bring to life, with a dash of social commentary, which feels painfully relevant today. It's okay, but not as good as I think the Batman breaks into Area 51 premise suggests. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.